Welcome to Shadow Strike. So Shadow Strike is a game of hidden movement and deck building where you will compete with up to 3 other players in a battle to try and find each other and deal 3 damage to each other. And whoever deals the final blow to one of the other players becomes the winner. So if you look here at the board setup, everything's already set up for you. We have our market deck here in the middle, and then we have some instructions here. We have everyone's player board, and it should have a hidden grid here so the other players can't see what you're doing. And then you'll have your starter deck, and then upgrade slots and health right here, as well as some extra helpful tokens here for some universal tokens. So if we look here at the instructions, you have this side here, which kind of gives you a little bit of overview, and then you have this side here, which gives you some more detailed information. It also includes a few different mode options there on the right side as well, so feel free to review those. And now let's talk about what's going to be on each player's board. So this is what your board's going to look like. I'll go ahead and switch to this color. Okay. And you'll see that I have a few different sets of tokens here, and then I have a deck of cards. So this right here is going to be my player token. So this is going to denote where I am at on the grid. And so that way I know if someone shoots a torpedo at the spot that I'm at, that I know that it's at me. And then that's also how I move around. And then these tokens here are used to track where you think other players might be. So you can see their question marks, and they match the colors of the other player tokens. These tokens here in the middle, you have damage tokens, which you'll need to put on your health once you take damage, and also on upgrade slots as they become destroyed. And then you have mine tokens for when mines are laid onto the board, and then also teleporter tokens for when teleporters are laid onto the board. Now for cards, let's look at the different types of cards, and I'll go over those real quick. So first, these are all part of your starter cards, which you can tell by the asterisk after the title of the card. That means it's a starter card, and you start with 10 cards, and you'll draw up to 5 cards at the start of your turn. And then here, this one is not a starter card, but I pulled it so we could look at the type. So you notice that there's not an asterisk here. But this type here is an upgrade card. So upgrade cards, whenever you purchase them, you're going to put them in your discard pile, and then when you draw them again and put them in your hand, you can play them from your hand and place them in an upgrade slot. Now, as your ship takes damage, upgrade slots become destroyed. So if I take 1 damage, 1 upgrade slot's destroyed. If I take 2 damage, then the second upgrade slot is also destroyed and becomes unusable. So your ship will take damage as you go. But while they're not in a destroyed slot, then you can utilize the upgrade however it says. There's a bunch of different kinds. If we look over here at the different types of cards that we still have, we have movement cards. Movement cards are going to be what moves you around the board and moves your piece. So if I, for instance, play this card during my turn, I will move 1 space in any direction. So I could go here, 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 or here. But I'll just stay there for now. And then attack cards. Attack card is always going to be how you deal damage to other players. So you'll select 1 place on the map. It can be any spot. It doesn't matter where. And if another player is on that spot, so let's say I pick D5, and I think that that's where someone is, and they end up actually being in that spot, then they will take a damage, and they'll take a token and put it on their health. And then if we look at reaction, reaction is unique because these are going to be cards that you can play at any time, no matter whose turn it is, as long as you meet the requirements. So this says when attacked, so that's going to be when you play this. Others you can play at any time. Others are only when other people play cards. There's a bunch of different reactions in there, and that's what these ones are. And then finally, utility. Utility is kind of going to be your catch-all for everything else. It's going to be how you add teleporters to the map. It's going to be how you manipulate your deck. It's going to be how you do special maneuvers or how you detect other players using detection darts, for instance, is another example. It's going to be a bunch of different stuff. So like for this one, for instance, this is going to help you with your deck management. So it's going to help you get rid of those lower value cards so they don't come up in your hand anymore, which allows you to get the good cards more frequently. The other thing to notice on all of the cards is this bottom border here. So we already talked about the different types, which is all color coded, and it also has the type written on it. But also it has this dice symbol here. So if there's a dash, that means you can ignore it. But if there's not a dash and it says, for instance, 3+, then in order to play this card, you would lay it down on the table in front of you, and then you would roll 1 dice, and you would have to roll a 3 or higher in order to do the action that it says here in the middle. This is generally reserved for like more powerful cards, some reaction cards, some attack cards, stuff like that. And then lastly is this number here on the bottom right. So this is the value of the card, which we'll talk about the market here in a second. But this value determines both the price of what it costs to purchase a card from the market, and then also its resale value when you try to purchase a new card using this card. So for instance, this card has a value of 3. So if it was on the market, I would have to spend 3 1-point cards or just 1 3-point card in order to get it. And then once I own it and I play it out of my hand, it's also worth 3. So for instance, if I wanted to purchase this card out of the market, I would only have to pay with this card instead of 3 singles. And that is the card overview, and I'll get us set up to go through a couple turns. Okay, so to set up for the game, what we're going to need to do is set all the boards out like this already, and then we need to pick our starting spot, and it can be anywhere on the board. So I'm going to start at B2, for instance, and then every player will do that at the same time. And then here in the middle, we'll put out our market of cards, which will be 6 cards. And they will all have different values, as you can see here, different types, different requirements. So for instance, this one requires a roll in order to play it. And we'll just set out 6 of these, and then we'll be ready to start the game. Now, as far as determining the starting player, you can do it however you want. But we can roll off, which since it's only me, I'll automatically win. So I'll just give myself a 6, and then we'll get started with my turn. So at the start of your turn, I'm just going to shuffle up my deck here, and I'm going to draw 5 cards into my hand. Okay, so I have my 5 cards here in my hand. So we have detection darts, we have a second detection darts, we have a reconfigure, so we have a lot of utility, a standard move, and a fire torpedo. So the big thing to think about here is that for every card that you play during your turn, you have to do what's called a detection roll at the end of the turn, which means that if you fail that detection roll, then you'll have to give other players a clue as to where you're located on the board. So we want to just play cards that we think are useful and then discard the ones that we don't want at the end. So I'm probably not going to move here, but I might use this to buy something from the market. I don't really need to reconfigure right now, so I could use that for the market. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's here in the market. For instance, the sensor array is a pretty good card, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'm just going to place it over here in my discard, and then I'm going to place these 2 cards on top of it to signify that I use these 2 cards, which was a 1 and a 3, in order to pay for this 4 cost card. And then we will add a new card. And then what I'm going to do is I'll play detection dart. So select 1 space on the map. All players must tell you how many spaces away they are from that space. Now this doesn't have a roll requirement, so I'll just say I'm playing detection dart on C4. Now let's say that this player here is on C4. They would say that's exactly where I am. Now let's say that they are on C6, they would say that they're 2 away. Let's say they're on D5, they would say that they're 1 away because they're diagonally 1 away, and so on and so forth. And that gives us an idea of where we might want to shoot this torpedo. So I'll go ahead and fire a torpedo at C5, and we'll just say that I missed. And so I'll decide to end my turn. Now, I have played 4 cards here because I used these 2 cards to purchase that one. And then I have these other 2 cards that I actually played. So that means that my detection roll at the end of my turn is going to be a 4. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take a dice, I'm going to roll it, and you can see I rolled a 2, so I failed the detection roll. and a 2, which this is all explained over here on the instructions. And a 2 means that I have to tell everybody a square that is 1 space away from where I'm currently located. So I'm located in B2, so I could either say B2, or I could say A1, A2, A3, B1, B3, or C1, C2, C3, etc. And the higher the roll that you get, the further out of the clue that you get. And if you roll a 1, then you have to say exactly where you're located. And then that will be my turn, and we'll just go around. And once it's my turn again, I'm going to deal myself back up to 5 in my hand. So you can see I still have that detection dart from the first turn, and then I have these 4 new ones. And then I have 1 here in my deck pile. Once I run out of cards in my deck pile, I will just take my discard pile, shuffle it, make it my deck, just like a normal deck builder game. So on this turn, I am pretty sure that I know that someone is at B5, so I'm just going to go ahead and shoot a torpedo at B5, and let's say that it hits. So whenever a torpedo hits the player, if they don't have an evasive maneuvers, which is a reaction card, which you can see here, then they automatically take the damage. So I'll just pretend to be that player for the moment, and I'll put a damage token on both my upgrade slot and my health, which means I took 1 damage. And then I have the option to move 1 space in any direction, including diagonals, from the space that I just got shot at from. So I took 1 damage, and I'm going to go ahead and move to A6. So now that player can't just throw 3 torpedoes at me and knock me all down in 1 turn. They would have to get lucky and guess exactly where I moved to from the space that they hit me the first time. Then the game will just continue going around with people purchasing new cards, building up their deck, and playing cards, finding each other with things like detection darts, and moving around the board with things like the standard move, and then shooting each other with torpedoes and other weapons. And then once someone takes 3 damage, whoever dealt the 3rd damage to that person is the person who wins. So you want to kind of pay attention to other people that are getting hit by torpedoes and where they are, and see if you can track them down from there. And that is how to play Shadow Strike, and I hope you enjoy.